Michael Jordan doesn't sue people for fun. The man is worth over $1 billion. He's got 6 NBA championships and global respect. So when he files a federal lawsuit claiming NASCAR is running an illegal monopoly, you should probably pay attention. But what's really shocking, Jordan isn't the first to speak out. Drivers have been getting banned for taking allergy medicine while team owners commit actual federal crimes and keep racing. And now, we have the receipts that prove it. Welcome to Track Reactions, your source for all the stories on and off the track. Let's start with the most obvious example, NASCAR's drug testing program. On paper, sounds reasonable, right? Keep drugs out of racing, protect the drivers, maintain the sport's integrity. But here's what they don't tell you about how it actually works. NASCAR can test any driver at any time for any reason. They don't need evidence. They don't need suspicious behavior. They just need to decide they want to test you. And once they test you, there's no independent oversight, no second opinions, no appeals process that actually works. Jeremy Mayfield found this out the hard way in 2009. NASCAR said he tested positive for methamphetamine. Mayfield said it was a false positive from allergy medicine. A federal judge looked at the evidence and said NASCAR was probably wrong. But NASCAR didn't care what a federal judge thought. They went to Mayfield's house 5 days later and tested him again. 40 minutes after that test, an independent lab found 0 drugs in his system. Think about that for a second. 2 tests, 40 minutes apart. Completely opposite results. Either Mayfield is the fastest drug flusher in human history, or something is seriously wrong with NASCAR's testing. Shane Meal got an even worse deal, banned for life after 3 failed tests. But here's what NASCAR doesn't advertise. Meal was struggling with bipolar disorder and had been misdiagnosed since he was 5 years old. Instead of getting him help, NASCAR made him an example. They destroyed his career and left him with nothing. This is the same organization that let team owners commit actual federal crimes and keep racing. But a driver with mental health issues? Banned for life. Does that sound like justice to you? Now, most people think NASCAR's problems are just about individual cases. Bad decisions here and there. Mistakes happen, right? Wrong. In 2024, Michael Jordan's 2311 racing team, along with Front Row Motorsports, filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. These aren't small teams looking for attention. Jordan is worth over $1 billion. He doesn't sue people for fun. The lawsuit claims NASCAR runs an illegal monopoly. They control who can race, where they can race, and how much money they can make. The charter system, which is supposed to guarantee teams a spot in races, actually restricts their freedom to compete anywhere else. It's like being told you can have a job, but only if you never work for anyone else ever again. And if you don't like it, tough luck. There's nowhere else to go. Jordan's team says NASCAR uses this control to suppress competition and keep team owners under their thumb. When you control every aspect of a business, when no one can challenge your decisions, when there's no real competition, that's not free market capitalism. That's a monopoly, and monopolies are illegal. But even if you ignore the drug tests and the lawsuits, NASCAR's corruption shows up in the races themselves. In 2024, NASCAR came down hard on Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon, and Ross Chastain for something they called race manipulation. These teams allegedly worked together to influence the outcome of a playoff race. NASCAR fined them over $600,000 combined, suspended crew members, docked championship points. The message was clear: NASCAR won't tolerate teams manipulating races. Except that's exactly what NASCAR does every single week. They throw caution flags to bunch up the field. They change rules mid-season to help certain drivers. They use competition cautions to create drama for television. When NASCAR manipulates races, it's called entertainment. When teams do it, it's called cheating. Want to know how deep NASCAR's corruption really goes? Let's talk about what happened to Joe Gibbs Racing. In 2024, NASCAR started investigating allegations that a JGR engineer was being bribed by another team to share secret setup information. This is industrial espionage, corporate theft, the kind of thing that destroys competitive integrity. But here's the really interesting part. NASCAR has been investigating this for months. No results, no announcements, no punishments. Compare that to how fast they moved on Jeremy Mayfield. One day he failed a test, the next day he was suspended. No investigation needed. But when it comes to teams with real money and real political connections, suddenly NASCAR needs to gather more information. This isn't justice. This is selective enforcement, and selective enforcement is just another word for corruption. Speaking of selective enforcement, let's talk about Gene Haas. He owns Haas CNC Racing, one of NASCAR's premier teams. He also sponsored Kurt Busch for years and has deep connections throughout the sport. In 2006, Haas was charged with defrauding the federal government of more than $20 million in taxes. $20 million. That's not a mistake on your tax return. That's organized, systematic fraud against the United States government. Haas was convicted and served prison time. But his NASCAR team never missed a race, never lost a sponsor, never faced any consequences from NASCAR whatsoever. So let me get this straight. Jeremy Mayfield takes allergy medicine and gets banned for life. Shane Meals struggles with mental health and gets banned for life. But Gene Haas commits federal tax fraud and NASCAR doesn't even blink? That's not a justice system. That's a protection racket for the wealthy and connected. Kurt Busch's story shows you everything you need to know about how NASCAR really works. In 2015, Busch was suspended indefinitely after domestic abuse allegations. NASCAR said they had a zero-tolerance policy for violence. 3 months later, when prosecutors found insufficient evidence for criminal charges, NASCAR quietly reinstated him. No big announcement, no apology, just a quiet decision that the media barely covered. But here's what's really interesting about the Busch case. NASCAR suspended him based on a family court finding that it was more likely than not that abuse had occurred. Not a criminal conviction, not a jury verdict. A civil court ruling using the lowest possible standard of evidence. Compare that to their drug testing program. Jeremy Mayfield had a federal judge say NASCAR was probably wrong, but NASCAR ignored that and kept him banned anyway. So a civil court ruling against Kurt Busch gets him suspended temporarily, but a federal court ruling for Jeremy Mayfield gets ignored completely. The only difference? Kurt Busch had money, connections, and a team that wanted him back. Jeremy Mayfield was an independent driver who'd already made enemies by speaking out against NASCAR's power structure. This pattern of selective justice goes back decades. Tim Richmond was one of NASCAR's biggest stars in the 1980s. Popular with fans, successful on track, and completely unafraid to challenge NASCAR's authority. When Richmond faced drug-related controversies, his career was destroyed. He died in 1989 without ever getting the chance to clear his name. Jeremy Mayfield claimed that NASCAR had admitted to rigging Richmond's drug test, that they told the testing company to find something to make it a positive test. Now, I can't verify whether NASCAR actually said that, but the pattern is unmistakable. Popular drivers who challenge NASCAR's authority end up facing drug controversies that never quite add up. Meanwhile, team owners and connected insiders get away with actual crimes. The most damaging part of NASCAR's corruption isn't the individual incidents, it's the culture of covering them up. When Jeremy Mayfield tried to fight his suspension in court, NASCAR portrayed him as a drug-addicted troublemaker. When Michael Jordan files an antitrust lawsuit, NASCAR claims he's just trying to get a better deal. When drivers speak out about unfair treatment, NASCAR questions their credibility. This is classic corruption behavior. Attack the messenger, discredit the witness, make the victim look like the villain. But the evidence speaks for itself. Federal judges saying NASCAR got it wrong, independent labs contradicting NASCAR's tests. Pattern after pattern of selective enforcement. You can't explain all of that away with bad luck or isolated mistakes. So where does this leave us? Is NASCAR corrupt? The evidence suggests that at a minimum, NASCAR has serious problems with accountability, transparency, and equal treatment under their rules. At worst, they're running a systematic operation designed to protect certain people while destroying others. The Michael Jordan lawsuit might force some changes. Federal courts don't like monopolies, and they really don't like organizations that abuse their power. But the real question isn't whether NASCAR will be forced to change. It's whether they'll choose to change before they're forced to. Because here's the thing about corruption. It always catches up with you eventually. You can ignore federal judges for a while. You can attack drivers who speak out. You can protect your friends and destroy your enemies. But you can't do it forever. And when the house of cards finally falls, it falls hard. What do you think? Is NASCAR corrupt, or are these just isolated incidents that get blown out of proportion? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Track Reactions, and we'll see you at the track.